Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cisco's Virtual Kitchen. Today, we have a really good topic I think is important. And you may have seen or not seen a lot of information when it comes to the 2022 trends or what the forecast looks like for moving ahead in the food service industry. And I think it's going to be awesome. So today, we have two guests. I'm going to say guests. Two rock stars. Mark Brandau, which is the best last name ever, is on the show, and Jim Taylor from Benchmark 60. So welcome, guys, to this great, exciting topic of what's happening next year.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Jim, you good up there?
I'm great.
I love the fact. So first of all, what you got to do is when you guys stream on a show like this, you have to tell everyone to please subscribe to Cisco Canada's YouTube channel as well as our Facebook. It's important because you hit the button subscribe, and when we do shows, you get a little alert on your phone to jump in and watch. And you can watch as much as you want, binge watch over the holidays, Jim, on our SVK network, because we got tons of it. We got over 300 shows on our network that you can just sit there and watch and watch. You can watch Yellowstone, and you can watch SVK.
Love
Okay,
it.
you guys are good with that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get into this. Let's get into what the heck Mark is going to be next year. What's going on next year in the food service world?
It's going to look a lot like the last half of this year, where we're talking mostly about, labor shortage, the supply chain working itself out, a lot of culinary trends as well, but it's really things like inflation, labor shortage that's going to be top of mind for a lot of operators and consumers too, if you can believe that.
What is some people doing about this labor thing? I'm hearing this not daily. Jim, I think you are too.
Yeah, every
Hearing
day.
about this?
It's the number one conversation that happens with any operator that I speak with too. It's how do we get around this? What are people doing? What's the competition doing? What do people want? What are employees looking for?
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting one. The thing I keep hearing the most is that staffing levels are starting to come up a little bit in some markets, but it's all people who don't have experience in hospitality. So it's changing the way that the business operates.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I
think they're not able to run it the same way they used to.
Yeah, you know what's interesting you say that is I think that I remember we had Andrew Scott on the show a while ago. I remember Andrew was talking about that, and this is before this labor became such a significant problem. It was way back in the spring, and he was telling people you got to go now and hire now, or you're going to. So he definitely was telling us where the tea leaves were going to be pointed. Mm-hmm. But what are people doing? So, Mark, what are you hearing people are doing to combat this? Because we know this industry is resilient and they'll get through it. So what are people doing right now with this labor problem?
Yeah, so the few times we've had a chance to ask about this, we asked, well, what were you doing, before this all hit the fan and the pandemic started? What did you do kind of during, as we started to see what these issues were? And then what are you considering? As the pandemic hit, what a lot of operators were starting to do, like, well, we need to figure out how to make scheduling more predictable, and then we're going to have to start, paying above the minimum wage in our market. But that's stuff that was happening before the pandemic. I mean, probably in 2018, 2019, at least in the States, unemployment was at a pretty low level. It was, kind of a seller's market for labor, and so there was already a pretty fierce competition to get in the folks that you would want working in your restaurant and you'd want to keep. So that was kind of already the lever that folks were pulling. It was, here's the federal minimum or the state minimum wage. We got to be competitive with that. And one big knock on restaurant jobs around here is that this sort of just-in-time scheduling, this idea that I can't work out my life outside of work, childcare, everything else, because I don't know what my schedule is going to be. That was already kind of top of mind. And, that was still what people were trying to do as the pandemic was starting. But really when folks are looking where they're going to go from here, a lot of the operators that we talk to that, what they have to sort of consider doing, now they're starting to think, well, all right, it's going to be sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses. We're going to have to pay up. You would think that there'd be a lot more appetite than there is, at least evident in this data that we have, for kind of moving a lot more into automation and sort of how to figure out how to do all of this with fewer people. but surprisingly, a lot of operators just kind of aren't there yet. They're really trying to wait and see how they can do this with people and not fully automating.
Now, Jim, are you seeing some of that similar stuff as you consult with restaurants across Canada?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is still operators are stuck in that which is the right strategy in terms of where to spend their money. Is it in retention? Is it in these retention bonuses that you're seeing, or the sign-on bonus, or is it just flat out in wages? I'm starting to hear lots of conversation about operators offering benefits to hourly employees in Canada and in some of these locations. And in the US market, I hear a lot about operators that are starting to just raise the wage above what their tip credit level might be, just to try to be almost dramatically different than what else is going on in their neighborhood or market. But it is all like Mark was saying, it's all related to still spending to try to get more people in the door, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next year or 2 or 5 in terms of technology and automation.
Now, do those? I have to ask you this because I see them all the time as my daughter's looking for a job to get into the market now as she graduates high school. I see it all the time, these signing bonuses. Is that really does that really work? Like, does it work, or is it just fluff?
It's a good question. We've only really asked kind of what they're considering. We'll have to follow up and see, well, is that leading to getting in employees that you want to keep and can keep? I think that right now it's just sort of a necessity, given the job market and given, how choosy people can be in the jobs that they take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In my personal opinion, both from operations times for me and in, doing some consulting with restaurants, the biggest mistake that I think that I see restaurant operators make with that signing bonus is that they wait until the person is out of their probation period to pay it. So,
okay.
And so by then, I mean, it's kind of lost its excitement, or sometimes it gets forgotten. And, whether it's a signing bonus or a referral bonus for a current employee, they wait to pay it until that probation period is over. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, if you can find the employer that's going to pay it to you today, you might as well take that one instead of waiting for the 3-month probation. So there's still little things like that culturally, I think, that companies need to figure out.
What was that, Mark?
It's that long. It's a 3-month wait period before you kind of get vested in that sign-on bonus.
I've seen a lot of places do that, right? Because they're worried that the person could take the sign-on bonus and move on the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I
So
see.
they try to get them through their probation period, make sure they're a good employee, and then they pay them. And my argument to that is that, well, then it's a retention bonus. It's not a signing bonus anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this must be having. So we understand there's a problem with labor. We see signing bonuses. Is it different offers when it comes to benefits of what they're getting? Now this has to be having an impact on the operator's menu, right? Are you seeing this impact, Mark, on menus right now? This labor there's got to be a correlation to the menu. Let's get into menu right now. What's this looking like?
Well, so I think that the bigger pressure on menu development isn't necessarily from the labor side as much as it is from some of the supply issues, but those are going to work themselves out, I think. And I think the reason why is that, when we have asked, folks about sort of their menu development in response to higher costs, right now, a lot of operators are sort of kind of taking the hit to margins in the short term. And then over the longer term, they are going to kind of rationalize their menus. They are, taking some things off, and they are kind of trying to move towards some of the off-premise strategies that can, make their labor a little bit more efficient. But in the near term, we're seeing a lot of, just kind of margin pressure that they are kind of forced to eat.
Jim, what are you seeing with menus for the future?
Yeah, I do see the labor shortage affecting at least more long-term planning of what's going to happen with menus, because I think that the operators right now are feeling the pressure of being short-staffed, and they're just trying to work through, as our industry is sort of notorious for, right? Just work harder and get through it.
Yeah.
And, I'm seeing that happening right now where they're short 1, 2, 3 people online, and they're, trying to execute a menu, or they're short on their bar and still trying to execute drink times. But they're starting to have that discussion about How do we streamline the menu? How do we look at product offerings differently? Do we just shrink the menu altogether? How do we look at, specials in order to help streamline the operation because we don't have enough people to execute it? I'm definitely starting to see that conversation happening in restaurants.
Are you seeing a lot of people cutting down on their hours of operation too? I mean, we've seen that. We certainly saw that early in the pandemic. It's less of a problem now, but I think that a lot of independent restaurants definitely are still kind of going 5-6 days a week instead of 7. And that's sort of the equilibrium that some of them are settling into.
And I think that predictable hours thing for staff, Mark, too, that you were talking about, there was lots of discussion when hours, when certain mandates and restrictions started to change and restaurants were actually able to open later, stay open until midnight or stay open until 1. There was almost panic in a lot of restaurants around, will our staff actually work those hours again? Because, those people were all used to working only till 10 o'clock. And I'm starting to see that soften up a little bit, but there's still some hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So let's get into a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the items on these menus as we see, obviously, people more conscious of what they're going to be eating. I think the pandemic has heightened that we got to eat maybe a little bit better, maybe a little less meat, maybe more plant-based proteins. Where do you see, Mark, when it comes to a lot of these trends from Dataessentials that you're looking at when it comes to specific items on the menus? Are we seeing some shifts there?
Some, what I was really surprised by kind of throughout the pandemic that we've been seeing is that food was a place where people wanted to keep their routines as, normal as possible.
Wow.
There are some working hypotheses of, okay, what if there's a big, flight to healthful eating because we're really concerned about, health, mortality, and all of that with COVID. On the margins, there was a little bit of that, but it wasn't a huge sea change toward that. There also wasn't a really huge flight toward comfort food either. I think we all got burnt out on that.
See, that blows my mind because I heard, I think this is the funny thing about predicting, and you look at these companies, and it's great that, I appreciate having you on from Dataessentials, is that, well, first of all, you guys are amazing when it comes to information. Thanks. But you look at all these different trends that people come out. There's, I always say it's generates the tidal wave of trend information that you get every, here's the trend for 2022. The big, I saw on there that comfort food was supposed to be a huge trend for 2022 again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, like if that's, you're not seeing that.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you define as comfort food, right?
Pasta.
Right.
Lots of pasta and cheese and those
bread.
things that are cheap and fills you up.
But also, I mean, is there discomfort food? I mean, all food provides comfort.
Good
right?
point. I'll give you that.
By generation and by region, what kind of counts as comfort food is a moving target. I think that the younger you get, the younger generations, I should say, what they view as comfort food is going to be, it's more likely to be, Asian or Mexican, Latin American, whereas Gen Z, boomers, kind of older consumers, their comfort food is really, like you said, pasta, Italian food, pizza. And so, every kind of generation or, part of the country, whether, different part of Canada, different part of the States, it's all kind of different what you call comfort. So yes, I think that there will be lots of comfort food being consumed, but that's the case all the time.
Yeah. Jim, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm seeing sales mix in a lot of restaurants staying very strong in the, if you think about comfort food in, let's say, casual fine dining, burgers, the crispy chicken sandwich type item is, it's on everybody's menu. Right. And I think every restaurant that I'm speaking with or every operator that I talk to, if they're working on menu, a fried chicken sandwich is top of mind. It's comfort, right? And it's on trend. So I don't see that changing.
The travel meal too. That's a big consideration for chicken wings. Not only is it a comfort food, not only is it super popular, but every casual dining chain that had to kind of do some off-premise strategy to kind of keep afloat, they were selling chicken wings because that's one of the things that travels the best.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of comfort food, Jay, I think, other items that I'm seeing a lot of conversation about are whether it's plant-based or not, but there is a resurgence in grilled cheese sandwiches coming. It's
Are
coming
you?
back. It's
No
easy to
way.
produce.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to
Serious?
produce. There's different kinds of gourmet ways you can do it. The
Mhm.
pasta thing for sure. I mean, so many restaurants, the whole bolognese thing is I feel like it's on a trend coming back, that kind of stuff. So there's definitely, I think, part of what's driving that, I think, is the comfort food conversation. But I also think the ease of preparation in the restaurants.
Yeah.
It's easier to make some of those items than it is some of the more complex ones that may have been on a menu a couple of years ago.
And easier to train to make.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So let's. I'm going to jump to a quick commercial because we have great vendors that send these awesome commercials, and I got to do a little commercial.
Yeah,
Take a sip of, and we're going to come back, and I want to talk takeout. What does 2022 talk about when it comes to takeout? Because I'm sure I don't even know what it looks like, what it is. Is it going to be big again? I don't know. But hold tight, everyone. We're going to be right back after this quick little commercial.
At Lynch Foods, we're passionate about flavor. As a Canadian custom manufacturer, we've been developing high-quality products for our customers for over 80 years. Sauces, dressings, gravy and soup mixes, toppings and syrups for ice cream and milkshakes, all in packaging ranging from individual portions to retail and bulk formats. For food service, healthcare, or as industrial ingredients, our processing expertise, innovation kitchen, and research and development team partner to create and provide solutions. Our excellent customer service, world-class certified food safety standards, and experienced nationwide sales force can support your business locally, be a trusted partner, and inspire endless possibilities.
Alrighty. Welcome back, everyone. We got Jim Taylor here from Benchmark 60. Mark Brandau. Do people do that, Mark? From Dataessentials, an analyst from Dataessentials. Do people say that when your last name comes out?
Everybody mispronounces my last name. They all say
Really?
Brandau. Yeah, they all say Brandau, and I have to say, no, it's
Brandau.
Brandau like the actor.
It's awesome.
And pretty soon people are going to forget who Marlon Brando was, and I'm going to be screwed.
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. Anyways, so we're back. We're talking trends 2022. Obviously, we know that comfort food, we know labor is a concern. Let's talk takeout right now, and then we're going to jump to a great point. We have a guest here, and the great thing about SVK shows that we have is that you can send us comments, ask us questions. We're live. And by the way, we're the only live streaming food service weekly show in North America. And it's awesome that we have you both on here. But I want to talk takeout. Let's talk takeout right now. Takeout 2022. First of all, that 2022 sucks to say. I just noticed. But Mark, where are we sitting with takeout? What's this looking like?
So I think one big factor with takeout in 2022, it's going to depend, like the last year and a half, 2 years on COVID. The last thing that we got a chance to really ask consumers about, and it's because it's unavoidable in the news, is about the Omicron variant of COVID. I know that in the States, we're worried about a fifth wave of increases in COVID cases because of this variant. And so we had a chance just in the last week, we just got this survey out of the field to ask folks about, how they think that, whether they're concerned about this or not, how that might affect their food choices. And first of all, concern over this new variant is pretty high. And so that is going to lead, I think, to, sustained strength in takeout. We're asking folks, given the prevalence of this variant, the fact that the pandemic probably isn't going to be over now for a while longer, what's that going to do? More than half of folks said that they're going to use delivery apps more. And about 2/3 of people are saying that they're going to eat inside restaurants less. So because of the conditions on the ground with the pandemic still, a lot of folks in the United States are vaccinated. A lot of folks, have adjusted their behavior over the past year or more. We sort of know how to live with this and hopefully make it endemic, not pandemic. But given what we're feeling right now in response to the news about this Omicron variant. That's going to drive, I think, more takeout and off-premise in the near term. And, those things are, I think that we've seen in past waves here in the United States that, that behavior does kind of stick around a little bit longer, even as, cases come down, concerns kind of come down. It's not always, a correlating spike right back into dining on premise. That takes a little bit longer to ramp up.
Jim, what are you seeing in Canada here?
I had a couple interesting conversations the other day about this, because what I'm seeing is actually, if you think about the last couple of years in terms of takeout, so much of it was reactionary, right? It was all of a sudden there's this massive spike, and there's, the restaurants that got a good handle on it, I think did a good job of retrofitting their space, or, trying to shift things a little bit to try to make room for packaging and that kind of thing. But what I'm seeing happening going into 2022 is a lot of, change in actual strategy, both operationally and growth strategy. It's instead of opening a new restaurant, there's a lot of companies opening a ghost kitchen, or just a production kitchen. And there's, I was talking to a mainstream, popular restaurant the other day, and they were saying they're still doing 40% of their revenue as takeout.
Really?
And that's a big, popular, everyone would know the brand, right? I mean, and I was shocked to hear that it was that high. So, that huge growth strategy thing, I think, is going to be interesting to see, where more independents, I think, are going to start to take on some of those spaces that are available and for full service restaurant. And we're going to see more ghost kitchen from some of the bigger groups.
Jim, did they say, if they had their druthers, what their ideal kind of sales mix would be? If it's 40% takeout right now, over the longer term, if we ever kind of get back to normal, would they want it to still be approaching that high, or do they want to get back to far more?
I think that's what is a challenge that's facing a lot of these companies from a strategic perspective, because they've built spaces for a long time based on 200, 300 seats and, doing really high revenue in the restaurant. And now they're only maybe needing 150 seats because so much of their volume out of those locations is coming in takeout. So I think moving forward, they'll adjust their strategy to, like you said, actually accommodate that higher percentage of takeout. But in the locations that have been there for a long time, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, we just got an operator survey back. We sort of asked that question of what's your sales mix now, and then what would your ideal sales mix be? And we just got it, so I don't have all the numbers crunched. But what I was kind of struck by is that the ideal sales mix that folks are saying they would like to have in a post-COVID environment is not terribly far off from what they have had in 2021. So I think that people are kind of just sort of pricing in the fact that they're going to want to do more off-premise, not because it works great for their physical plant, to your point, but that's just kind of going to be what consumers are going to be demanding. That's the bet that they're making. Yeah,
I think the one thing that I keep hearing about, increasing volume and takeout in a space that they've had to retrofit is it wasn't designed to do that type of volume of takeout. And all of the training and all of the, the most of the concepts are set up to do plated and controlled volume, right? You can only seat so many people. And I know that a challenge that's going to continue to face operators is things like how to manage the volume of orders that come in on a takeout platform at any given time. The one that always stands out as a bit of a nightmare was the first Mother's Day that happened at the beginning of the pandemic, right? I mean, you saw people standing in parking lots of restaurants for hours waiting for their food.
Happened to me, for sure.
The operators didn't understand how to toggle those third-party apps. So a lot of that strategic stuff is still, I think, going to be a big part of 2022.
Yeah, there are a couple of aggregators out there right now, but it's not something that the industry has figured out nearly as well as other ones like the hotel and hospitality industry. They have the sort of digital distribution figured out better than food service does right now.
Yeah, and I think there will be, we saw with things like contact tracing and vaccines and stuff like that, being needed in order to go into restaurants. We're seeing more and more restaurants go towards reservation and reserved dining. And I think the smart operators are going to do the same thing with takeout, just push more and more towards, especially on the high takeout days, more and more towards pre-orders and controlled volumes and that kind of thing. I mean,
it's interesting there. it's interesting there because, moving toward a kind of a reservation system to manage the traffic is one that operators understand and that consumers are into.
Mhm.
But this idea of going a little bit more upscale with it and doing the prepaid ticketed meals and then the experience is curated for you, that works in fine dining, but consumers really are not into that idea in any other setting. So,
Yeah.
definitely, if you want to move toward reservations and sort of managing how fast you're turning your tables, great. But at least so far, the more kind of upscale version of it, ticketed prepaid meals and all these pairings are set up and all that. We're not there yet.
No, for sure.
Awesome. So I have another question here for you. This is a great chat. Vaccine passports in restaurants. We're seeing this everywhere. You food from food courts to restaurants. The statistics that we're seeing from Restaurants Canada is that people are feeling a lot safe by doing this. Is this going to continue as we go through in 2022?
Well, I think so. In the States, I can't speak to, how many mandates will, persist or pop up because state by state, state government by state government, it's very, very different in all of our regions. I'm sure there's some regional differences in Canada as well, but in the States, it can be sort of a red or blue state question of how strict a mandate will be. But when we ask consumers wherever they are in our country, whether or not they would comply with a mask mandate, with a vaccine mandate, most people would comply if that's what they were asked to do to enter a restaurant. And even folks that, would sort of leave the restaurant if they were asked to show their vaccine card or wear a mask, most of those folks would rather, just get a takeout or delivery instead. Yeah. They would come back when, COVID eases and these restrictions ease. Very, very few people would leave the restaurant and reconsider ever coming back again. So the likelihood of compliance with mandates like these is pretty high among consumers. I think we are still, for the most part, able to go along with a big ask like that because that's that's what we need to do to get out of this. Mm-hmm. And there's very, very little of that kind of independent streak that is against stuff like that.
Yeah, Jim, what are you seeing up here?
Yeah, most of what I saw was actually when they rolled out the mandates around vaccine passports, and I found in the province that I live in, most people kind of complied with it, and if you had to show a passport, then that was fine. But I think it was because the way that the government rolled it out, it was a government decision, right? And I think there are some other provinces that it was made to seem more like the restaurant's decision. And in those cases, I know that they've seen a dramatic drop in customer counts, like 20-25% in some cases.
Yeah, restaurants would much rather have that decision taken out of their hands.
Yeah.
I think that they are happy to comply with what is decided, but if it becomes a restaurant by restaurant thing where this guy down the street isn't asking anybody to do anything, and I'm concerned for my staff and my guests, and I am at least asking you to wear masks, or we're going all the way to a vaccine requirement, they would much rather have the playing field be leveled by the state or federal government above them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love seeing the comfort in how people go into these restaurants. They show their passport and they say, yeah, I'm vaccinated. And it is where I'm sure one day maybe we won't have to do that, or it becomes just the norm of what we're used to, just like back in the day showing your license. Mm-hmm. Jim, you still get ID'd, right? For being all the time. It's right there. It's that beautiful young face you got. You're under 60 or 18. But I love the fact that it brings this comfort. And I was just at a place on Sunday and we had to do the same thing. And I was sitting there and I was watching how people just, you do that. And then it was like a safe place. And wow, what a great, feeling to have to enjoy a great meal or, a great entertainment and all that. So I do. And the statistics that we're seeing from RC in their stats is that consumers feel safe by doing that. So I'm assuming that will continue until maybe I feel like it'll continue quite a long time through 2022. I don't see that going away for quite some time until it's like gone, right? Until we don't even hear about it.
I mean, a lot of consumers are saying that they're going to be wearing masks, pretty much for the foreseeable future. They would like to see, servers and bartenders wearing them for the foreseeable future. And again, that's one of those things that people say one thing and might, act another way.
Yeah.
But at least right now, there's not a lot of backlash to long-term, mask wearing. Might be a little bit less of an appetite for long-term, vaccine requirements, but at least in the near term, folks are going with it.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to bring up here, because I've devoted my career to helping restaurants out with Cisco, and the one thing I've always said this, and it's so funny, we look at 2022, and I want to just kind of really come back to a little bit about what that looks like. What would you say to operators right now, as they're busy right now through the holidays, through Christmas, they're getting all the sales, and we know, and it is like, I think it's tattooed somewhere, that January, February, March is typically a tough time in our industry as people, pull back a little bit on their spend, not going out as much, not as much takeout, cooking goes up at home. What would you say right now to restaurants that are going into this new year within what they need to do with their business right now? Top 5 things that they need to think about right now moving into this new year. Who wants to start? Jim? Let's go, Jim.
Yeah, sure. I think, the thing that I spend the most time with the restaurant groups that I work with on is that, I think forever the restaurant industry has been, we've sort of just tried to always do the same things over and over again, right? And we've sort of tried to, find a few things that we think work, and then get very committed to those things. And, one example would be that there's the same level of expectation around profitability pretty much every month of the year. It's just, the sales go up in certain months, so we hope that the net profit is a little bit more. So we've been spending a lot of time with clients on diving really deep into exactly what the expectations should be in months like January and February, to take some of the stress and surprise away, because the reality is that the customer behaves different, like you said, in those months. So you can't always expect a large group of people to come out and spend a high amount. You have to expect that there's going to be fewer people and spending less, and you have to adjust accordingly. So, the challenge that's going to exist this year, I think, is that there's a labor shortage, which there typically isn't in January and February. That's always been a time when people aren't normally hiring. And right now they're going to be hiring while at the same time they're trying to save money. And so that's going to be a really tough one to juggle, I think, because wages are going up, inflation's going up, and they also need to pay for hiring and training. So, we're spending a lot of time with our clients right now and really trying to dial down exactly what the expectations should be and how to remain profitable for the next couple of months.
Mark?
Yeah, the Jay put that. It's like every restaurateur runs a seasonal business, right? Even if you're not, a summer vacation spot, even if you're in a center city district, you do run a seasonal business, and you need to know that profitability in January is going to look different than profitability in the summer. I like the way that you put that.
Yeah, and I think here's I'm going to share my 2 thoughts on this as well. I'll answer myself my own question. I guess the big thing, and I think that's what's great is, and I threw Jim's information up there on Benchmark 60. Reach out to Jim, because he is really leading the country when it comes to a new way of helping restaurants really, survive and continue. So you got to check out benchmark60.com.
Thanks.
I hopefully that's right. .com, right?
Yeah.
It's not that. Okay, cool. So you got to check it out, because it is. I've seen thousands of consultants over my 32 years in this industry. Is really got to check out what Jim's doing, because it is new and it's fresh and it's great. I love it. The thing I always say to all the restaurants I've consulted with over the years and worked with is, and I know it's hard, and I say this with ease, not owning a restaurant right now, strategy. You gotta have a strategy. And I think that's probably key as we go through and plan for 2022, is you're going to have some law time after Christmas. There's that quiet time. Sit down and work on a strategy for your year. Now, I don't think you can strategize the whole year, but you could probably strategize for the next 3 to 4 months what you're going to do, what your plan is, what you're going to do with your menu. Are you going to continue to run a big menu, shrink it down? The world has really given us a lot of opportunities to adjust to make it through, with COVID being, that big thing that's overhanging us. But obviously, like menus today, most of them are digital. Most people are hearing the news on supplier issues or cost of products going up, all these things. You do have the media, and you do things you can leverage from that to help your operations out. But the biggest thing I always find is, what's your plan? And most operators, and Jim, you must see this daily, is my plan is what I'm going to do tomorrow and or what I'm going to do next week, or I'll just take a few items off my menu, or I'll run a feature or a special. That's my plan. Or I'm going to throw a couple posts on social media, right? It's typically not well thought out, or it's not a strategy. It's more of just a reaction to what they're dealing with in that moment. I've been there. I've done it. I've been there. I've ran restaurant. Right? Like that's what it is, right? Jim, would you agree people got to work on a strategy?
Yeah.
How do you start one from your perspective?
The way that, and this applies to when I was in operations too for a long time, is that our industry is very, notorious for what did we do last year, and let's plug that in again this year, plus a little bit of an improvement.
Yeah.
Right. It's, how do we just beat what we did last year by a little bit? And that really doesn't apply right now. Right.
No,
and so,
it doesn't. Good point.
I'm sure Mark will appreciate this, that, we're spending 90% of our time with any restaurateur that we work with on really trying to understand data and what is it telling us? What has the last 4 weeks been, 8 weeks been, 12 weeks been? What does it look like? What's your staffing trend looking like? What is your customer behavior looking like? We've actually started giving every one of our clients a book called the 12-week year.
Okay.
Because it's just really trying to almost forecast and create a strategy around let's figure out what the next 3 months look like.
Yeah.
Forget what you're going to be trying to do in September, October next year.
Well, especially now, we don't know, really, Jim, what tomorrow's going to be like, right? The media could come out and say, don't do this. And it's like, everyone follows it, right? Right. It is, but planning out those 3 months and what it looks like. And that also is, and I love the fact that you talked about data and looking at the information that we're getting from like companies like Dataessentials. And the other ones out there, just be careful. There's a lot out there. So you got to stick to the ones that are credible. That's my first recommendation. Mm-hmm. But also is look at your social media statistics. What are you doing within social media marketing? What are you doing within those spaces? Look at the analytics. Look at your impressions. Look at how many people you're following. Are you boosting ads? Are you focusing on the areas? Are you joining? Can I tell you, there's like, first of all, we could do a whole show on social media marketing in this space. Is that understanding from a restaurant operators, they typically think just putting a post on Facebook or on Instagram, it's going to drive traffic your way. It's like playing an instrument, I believe, in this space that you need to know every note perfectly to make it sound good. Mm-hmm. And I think in social media, you have a huge opportunity, as the whole world really pushed over to social media through the pandemic, is to really get out there, share what you're doing, your brands. I see some restaurants, I follow thousands of restaurants, and I see these ones with little videos. I love them about what their special is this week or what they're doing. Personable, they're authentic, they're real. You need to look at those statistics, but you need to understand them. You need to get out there, reach out to, like Cisco, we have business resources. We have a great team to help look at that. We have companies we work with that will help you with the analytics. Get a scouting report from orderies.com. Here's a company I work with, orderies.com. They will do a scouting report on your social presence for free. Why wouldn't you do that? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, why wouldn't you see how good you are? They will tell you how good your pictures are, what they're doing, what they're not doing. Where's your opportunity? Because a lot of us in restaurateurs, we didn't go to school to learn how to run a restaurant. We're usually all, got it from a family member, or dad gave it or handed it down, or you became a dishwasher and you turned into an owner. All these things. We didn't typically go to school for this space. So reach out. That's a big thing, I would say. There's so many people out there to help you, so much stuff to learn. And social media, I tell you, is so big. But what an opportunity to make a dent in your plan and your strategy that will have an effect, because there's so much in that space. So anyways, I just wanted to share a strategy, 3 months, shrink it down, look at your menu, shrink those menu items down. I think people are going to get used to it. Do you imagine going into, I'm just going to share this with you guys. I guess when you run a show, you can do whatever you want. Do you imagine going to a restaurant and they hand you a menu, it's got 200 items on it? How would you feel?
Well, I was a server at the Cheesecake Factory.
I was just gonna say.
Okay, that's 250 plus menu items.
Right. So in college, I waited tables at the Cheesecake Factory for about 9 months, and I was probably the worst server in the history of that chain. Just because, I mean, they trained us for 2 weeks on that small novel of a menu.
Yeah.
And it was still just impossible sometimes to really know it backward and forward and be able to, guide your guests through what they might like, what they need to know about, but at the same time, they would never slim that menu down, because that's such a huge.
And that's a part of their DNA in a way too, right?
Yeah.
And they execute beautifully with that menu, and they're huge up here in Canada.
Sure.
And great customer of ours too. But they do that right. But if you went into an independent operator right now, a small mom and pop restaurant, and you saw a big menu, I don't know if that would almost deter me to want to even go back. Like there might be this notion that we've been kind of, I guess, climatized into expecting smaller menus.
I don't know if a big menu doesn't appeal to consumers, but it's certainly harder to operate, right?
Yeah.
It's way harder to execute. You would much rather be, a chain like Raising Cane's right now that has, a handful of items on their menu that they execute amazingly every time.
Yeah. Jim, big menu?
No, we're actually
just no.
We're working
Just
with
no.
a few clients right now that's a big topic of conversation, and it's actually, one of them that we're talking to right now is actually 3 entrees, 4 sandwich type things, and 2 bowls, and that's it. That's the whole menu for a 200-seat restaurant. I mean, it's just keep it simple. Make sure it's a product that you can actually get. You can flip it quick. You can train easily.
Rules. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I always find this also is that there's no rules. There's not a rule. I believe there is the right formula for each restaurant. There's a different formula for each restaurant. I think a lot of the times people think that what they hear works with their operation. I think you need to sit down and look at what's your formula. It's in your formula. I think is from the parking lot to your plate, and it's everything in between. And it's even your location. It could be all these different things works with your formula of your restaurant to determine your success. Obviously, your profitability as well, and that's a whole different story. But I believe there's a formula for every restaurant, but there's no rule in how you write that formula, right? Like there's no rule saying that you must have a big menu, you must do this. And today, I tell you, small menus and flipping those items all the time, the curiosity, young generations, millennial, Gen Z that we're targeting, you should be targeting them for your business, especially in 2022. That population is spending more. They're also getting less, they have less money. Let's say they're less likely to have a mortgage, right? They're not buying cars. They're buying they have that less, right? Having kids, so they have this extra money to go out and eat. And we see the statistics in the past that they spend so much eating out. So whatever you're doing, target that space. But they're more likely to be engaged with a restaurant that is flipping menus and changing items up and creating unique things and having fun. Do you see, Mark, and I'm going to finish this because we're going to wrap up here quick, but do you see, what do you see in a sense when it comes to that generation that is drawing them in 2022? What do you think that will be?
Gen Z specifically? Well,
yeah, I'll say millennials, but they're getting old now too.
as an elder millennial, yeah, I feel that.
Okay.
So Gen Z, I think, as they are more, I think, tied to and what appeals to them more than other generations would be things like kind of new, exciting, and global flavors. They are pretty adventurous. They have a real sense of what's authentic in terms of a global cuisine or a new flavor. They're on the lookout for all sorts of interesting new stuff. They're not necessarily more likely than millennials to be super into plant-based eating, adoption of different diets. They tend to stick pretty close to their kind of older siblings and that kind of stuff, but they are incredibly adventurous in terms of flavor. They're on the lookout for new stuff from whether it's kind of like a regional American thing, getting really, really specific into things like, okay, well, I know that something like a New Mexico hatch chili is a really distinct flavor that I would love to see even in a local independent restaurant here in New York City or Pittsburgh. I'm not going to necessarily travel all the way to the Southwest for that kind of stuff, or more of a global thing like even sort of new things from Latin America, Asia, Eastern European would be one they're looking out for. Like they are looking for either a really authentic pierogi or one that the preparation is authentic, but the flavors are really interesting and cool. Like they would love nothing more than say like a buffalo chicken or a Philly cheesesteak pierogi. They love that interplay of formats and flavors and service styles.
Awesome. Jim, what are you going to think?
I was just going to tack on to what you were saying about social media earlier. I think that
you want to get that. Okay, we'll go back there for a second.
Well, I mean, you're just seeing the restaurants that I work with that have the strongest following of that demographic are the ones that are the most active on social media from a, from an engagement perspective, and just the way that they're not just posting a photo of their food. It's engaging, it's exciting. And, they're actually, like you said, we were talking about a few minutes ago, they've actually got a strategy to attract that clientele.
And a brand voice.
Sorry, Mark. Sorry.
And a brand voice too. I mean, they probably have a relatively well-paid elder millennial or Gen Z person on staff who knows how to speak in that vernacular. That changes all the time, by the way. I mean, my kids are already speaking in ways unrecognizable to me, because of what they watch on YouTube. But smart brands have people that are on top of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the power is insane. Social media power for your restaurant, like the power of social media is insane when you look at like TikTok or Facebook. Not really so much Facebook, apparently that's the older generation, but Instagram and TikTok. When you're getting to TikTok and you're putting your brand out there and different products out there, it's insane what that power does to your brand and to your operations. I tell you, it's a whole different topic. We'll bring it back. But first of all, last thoughts here, just as we wrap up. Last comment. So if you want to tell all the restaurants in Canada and the US right now, Mark, what are you going to tell them about 2022 that they need to know right now? Quick.
You got to get labor and inflation figured out. So I think that in the short term, it just means that you have to make investments. Whether or not you are going to invest in some sort of automation technology in the back of the house or the front of the house that's going to make the folks that you have make their job easier, not just replace them, but make their job easier, make them more efficient, and make it easier to work at your restaurant. That's one thing. And if you want to go through it and do this with people, then you are going to need to invest in those people as well, whether it is through competitive wages, some benefits, and just being able to fit into their life better with better scheduling, working with them to work through childcare, other jobs they might be working. You need to be a dependable, predictable part of your staff's life.
Awesome. So I just got to touch on those two things really quick because I'm a big, I helped develop this for Cisco as well. But so Cisco Advantage Partners, we have different partners within our Cisco Advantage program. So you go to cisco.ca, check it out. There'll be a lot of those companies that Mark is talking about and looking at that. We have solutions that can help you with that space. So check it out. Okay, cisco.ca. And then we also have business resource teams across Canada that can help you out with those spaces in that area that Mark's mentioning in there. So Jim, last words of the industry. What are you going to tell them for 2022?
Yeah, I think, my words would be just based around that the trends are short term right now, right? And there's so much change happening in the last 18 months that don't look at what you did last year to try to plan next year. You know, just really focus on what's happening with your customer and how they behave, what some of the product costs and those things look like, and just look at the last 12 weeks. You know, even if you want to separate Christmas out of that, look at the, you know, October, November, use that to plan January, February, and just make sure that you're really on top of the strategic side of things, because the business is changing so quickly right now, and it's tough to stay ahead of. So.
Yeah, and that's I love the fact I got your website up there, so people please check out benchmark60.com. Check out Dataessentials. It's an amazing site as well, just on tons of content. So I really recommend you listening to people, listen to different things, join as much webinars, podcasts. We have a podcast, by the way, now too. Go to Spotify and you can look up SVK Network Podcast. We have a podcast, so this will be up on there later on today, so you can listen to this if you're driving or working out. Or at a restaurant, maybe, I don't know. But please listen to this. It's going to be worth your time. The other thing, and thanks again, Jim and Mark, on joining today on the show. And I just really want every restaurant to stop, think about, Jim, you nailed it. Don't think of the past. You know, you gotta, it's so different and it's changing every minute of the day as we move forward in our industry. But thank you again for being on today's show.
Anytime. This was fun.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jay.
Awesome. So tune in later this week. We have the vegan and plant-based chef. You know what we're going to create? We're going to create vegan plant-based charcuterie boards. Huh? Jim, didn't think that was coming, eh?
Oh,
We're going to have you seen those?
Yeah.
You're in the U.S. You guys always see little things, cool things down there. We're going to have that on Thursday, and the next week is our last week before we wrap up. But all of our shows now are on demand on Cisco's YouTube channel, so subscribe and follow that, as well as Facebook, and now on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcast. We are on there as well, and definitely binge watch through the holidays. But thanks again for both of you, and thanks to everyone else that tunes in. We're going to run a little clip here of what makes us different at Cisco. But thanks again, and tune in soon. Cheers. See you guys.
Thanks.
Our table is set, and we have a seat just for you. At Cisco, we love what we do, and that is delivering success for our customers through industry-leading people, products, and solutions. Our team is the difference between good customer relationships and great ones. Your dedicated sales consultant is here to help you grow your business. They will connect you with the products, solutions, and insights you need to grow your profits, streamline your operations, and market your business. They'll offer you customized consultations with our chefs and industry specialists to answer your questions and inspire you. Our specialists can help with protein, fresh local produce, takeout and delivery solutions, and more. And if you simply need someone to answer a quick question, our Customer Connect team is just a phone call or chat message away. Cisco is at the heart of food and service and connecting the world to share food and care for one another. Join us for a seat at